lovely to be here. Pleasure to take lead of this panel as well. The Chief Executive Officer, many people might look at that, consider the most important role in many organizations. Some might look at it enviously. Others may wonder, with the long hours, the responsibility on their shoulders, who would want to be one? Well, they do bear responsibility for how strategies are implemented, crucially, and shaping, mobilizing resources in how that delivery is done. Perhaps one of the most interesting aspects, I think, for CEOs is often they remain singularly accountable in many companies for just how well things go and how those issues are delivered. In this session, we're going to take a look. We have a great panel for you. We're going to take a look at the essential strategies and key things that a successful CEO ought to have. We talk about this today, in particular, two relevant issues that we want to delve into: the ever harder landscape globally, geopolitically, to try and navigate as a CEO, and then also looking at trying to drive growth and profitability, which is something we've been hearing a lot about here at the summit. So unique expertise, these four gentlemen on my left bring understanding and crucially experience as well of running major fintech businesses or related businesses in today's world. Their names are up, so I'm not going to start with any further introductions, but I will ask, first of all, an opening question. Given what I've just said, the sorts of landscape you're dealing with when running a business, Charlie, I'll come to you first. What's the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity you see as a CEO in the year ahead?
So I think it's interesting. We went through a process last year. We went from one private equity firm to another. And that's always a little bit like a political campaign. You start off with your manifesto, which is your IM. You then do your campaign, which is your bidder meetings. And then you have the bid deadline, which is election day. And then the really exciting thing starts, which is you get your new partner. And then you start working out what the point of arrival is going to be in the next 3 or 4 years. And that's the sort of bit when you start building teams and you start evolving the business. And that's where the strategy comes in. That's where really understanding what the long-term aim is and ensuring that whatever you're doing may be sort of going in a slightly different route than what you thought you were going to do, but you focus on that prize. So for me right now, the really exciting thing is working out what the destination is, working out how to get there, and really enjoying our new partner, who we work with in a very collaborative way and are really helping us in terms of a talent bridge into the business.
And I'll pick up on that as we move along, because I think all four of the companies are looking at expansion. It'd be good to get a sense of just how you incorporate new partners and stakeholders. Roger, firstly to you, challenge and opportunity for the year ahead?
Yeah, and I'll do the thing where the challenge is also the opportunity. It's really related for me to both the pace of innovation and the level of disruption that the large tech providers are bringing to the market. If you think about cloud providers, if you think about the AI shops, every time they release a new feature or they make a new drop, they basically put hundreds of companies out of business. It's not instantaneous, but you know, the writings are on the wall. So it really boils down, especially when you're building on the cloud and you're using an AI and those tools, it boils down to how do you stay ahead, right? And in particular, as those players are going deeper and deeper in our respective value chains. And that's also wherein lies the opportunity, because those tools, those features, they're extremely helpful, and they allow you to do so much with so little, right? So the opportunity, so the challenge is really staying ahead. The opportunity is embedding yourself in your clients' environments, really truly understanding them, and that's what we're about at Alphea.
Rob?
So I'll begin just first by saying we are an insurtech. So I'm the CEO of bolttech, and we are the world's largest insurance exchange, the technology-driven insurance exchange. We operate on 4 continents and 35 countries. And I say that to give you an idea of the space that we're covering across such a wide geographic opportunity. And for us, the opportunity really comes from the diverse needs that exist in all of those 35 countries. It's also why, as an American, I live outside of the United States. I live in Singapore, and I live in Singapore because you can't really understand the customer need. You can't really understand the environment. You can't really understand the regulatory scheme from inside of the US if you're trying to serve clients outside. And so one of the biggest opportunities for us is this growing protection gap that continues to emerge outside of the United States, where there is a huge need for protection, but very limited access to protection. And the more that players like the incumbents that you just saw on the stage right before us talk about the fact that they welcome and are encouraged to participate with the up-and-coming insurtech or the fintech players, that's a big opportunity. The biggest risk or the biggest challenge that I face is relentless prioritization. We just can't do everything. We can't be in every geography. We can't serve every need. And we have to do relentless prioritization. And I always worry, am I getting the prioritization right? We don't have enough capital to do all of those things. And so finding the right balance between speed and making profitability work and getting capital into the machine at the same time, these are the big challenges on a day-to-day basis for the CEO.
Thanks, and that decision-making process is something that we can hopefully touch upon as we move along as well. But last by no means least, Manas, your thoughts on the challenge and opportunity?
Yeah, the biggest challenge for us for this year is actually the capital markets, and more precisely the nervousness of the capital markets with regards to a newly listed company. So we are a fairly recently listed company, and as such, even though we have been outperforming our general peer group, we have a lot of pressure on the share price, and that creates some vulnerability, and that's kind of my biggest concern for this year. It doesn't keep me up at night, but it is a concern. What I think keeps me up at night actually is the opportunity, and I think the opportunity is around technology once again becoming a boardroom topic. With Gen AI, everybody wants to talk technology. And at the scale and size and scope at which my company, Nagarro, is at today, we have a chance to participate in those strategic conversations. And it's really a chance to reshape ourselves as well as our clients, right? So yeah, that's the biggest opportunity for the year.
Thank you. Rob, let me come to you there. You mentioned prioritization and the difficulty about worrying about getting it right. But as a CEO, taking risks must be part and parcel of your thinking.
It is. I mean, by definition, I'm in the insurance business, and so insurers take risk, and so understanding risk, managing risk is the challenge. It's actually exactly as the comments were made earlier. It's really two sides of the same coin. Without risk, there isn't opportunity in the first place. So I love the fact that risk exists. The real challenge is making sure that you can select the right risks or find your right space in the business to serve the right risks. So I came from my previous job before taking this role was CEO of AIG's general insurance business globally. So I saw the world from a very different incumbent space. And now here I am in an insurtech trying to help to enable the incumbent players to do the things that I wish someone would have helped me do when I was sitting in the risk-taking seat every day. So now I can be a helper with respect to the risk, even if I'm not necessarily always the ultimate risk taker.
And Charlie, you're in a fairly unique position on stage in that you've been in the position a bit longer. You guys started off as a traditional business-to-business publisher, and now you provide data to institutional investors and others to make those financial decisions. How much is the advance of technology causing concern or opportunity for you?
I think it's big opportunity. I mean, we've been doing this for 26 years. And when I say we, it was my best friend from school. And we started above a taxi firm in London. We're now about 500-600 people. We'll do about $100 million of revenue this year. So the whole thing has really snowballed. And I think just going back to a challenge rather than addressing the tech opportunity, is really making sure that when you are growing, you keep the culture and you move the culture on. I think, my job, one of my number one jobs is to be the arbiter of our culture and to make sure that we put the skills in 2 or 3 years before we need them. And I think that goes into how we've transformed the business from being a publisher into a data business. Certainly the new partner that we have, Motive, have really helped us accelerate what we're doing around tech. And really help us understand how to deliver the data that we collect better and how to enrich it. So I think data is the best opportunity because, what we do is we help institutional investors allocate better and we help managers raise better. And so we can, by really getting the data right and really being able to interrogate the data, we can tell the managers which are the investors that are most likely to invest in them and therefore spend time with. And we can also help allocators really understand who fits their strategy and their asset allocation.
And we spoke briefly about the importance of this region in particular, the Middle East. For many people worldwide, they see this as a region that's brimming with cash at the moment, relatively speaking to others. More interest you're seeing from institutional investors in a nascent industry here?
Yeah, I think it must be, people who invest money from this region must be getting quite bored with the 380s full of private equity managers that are coming to try and raise cash. I think it's really important that when they do come, it's not just please give us some cash, and it's a sort of, this is what we're going to bring to the region. We're here for the long term. We see this as a long-term relationship. But certainly, I think the private equity industry and private markets in general are finding asset raising more difficult than they have done for a long time, and are therefore investing more time down here.
And we'll delve into that. But Roger, you're looking at it from a different perspective, a UAE-based firm, the sorts of things that Charlie's talking about, where it's not necessarily money going out anymore, but incredible things happening here in the UAE, in the region, when it comes to future technologies in particular. If you look at the likes of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, just give us your sense of how exciting it is for what's happening and being at the epicenter of that.
So very exciting. I was thinking about it this morning, and so I've been involved in the region for 15 years now, from London, then from New York, and yeah, I moved here last year. And so when I think about where we were 15 years ago and where we are today, you're talking about much more than a step change. When you think about the companies that are sprawling, the type of talent you're seeing around, the type of conversations and the sophistication of the ideas you're seeing around, it's day and night. And I encourage us all to think about what the next 10, 15 years could look like. And it becomes pretty transformative and very exciting. And so first of all, call to action for everyone in this room to contribute to this development. A few observations that you're seeing now, right? If you take a look at the companies that are coming out of here, the ideas that are coming out of here, they start to be pretty meaty, right? I mean, we all know G42. We think that Alfea, we're a wealth tech company. We're a good example of that sort of like that 3.0 economy that's sprawling from here. And there's a whole ecosystem of firms, and obviously you've spoken to them over the past years. I'd say that on top of that, if you look at the international players, the international large tech firms, and their involvement here, it's moving from we have a couple of salespeople to we're really building a footprint here. We're investing. We have technologists, etc. And so it goes really across all tech. Of course, AI is everywhere at this conference, but you're seeing crazy stuff in payments, you're seeing great stuff in crypto, you're seeing great stuff in buy now, pay later. So lots of exciting stuff, and it's tangible. It's not just like announcements.
Yeah, and we have seen a real diversity, I think, in the sorts of fintech players that have been on show here at the summit this year. Manas, let me come to you then. Nagarro recently passed the $1 billion revenue mark. That's more than double the figure it was just 3 years ago. When you look at businesses, it's usually about let's do better than last year. When you witness rapid growth like that, what's the key to ensuring it continues?
I think we're discussing the role of CEOs here. So I think each CEO has their own concept of how the company should scale. Charlie spoke about culture. Rob spoke about working in 35 countries. And I think we all have our mental model of scale. For me, it's about creating a minimalistic framework within which entrepreneurship can flourish. So it's a bit like Dubai, actually. You put out some law, some infrastructure, property rights. You build the structure, and then you want diversity, you want energy, you want entrepreneurship, and that's kind of what we've tried to do at Nagarro. And we look 5 years out, and we're trying to figure out what will the company need 5 years out. in terms of this infrastructure and refining it, we also operate across 35, 36 countries, have clients in 70 countries, and to have the uniform sort of Nagaro way of doing things and culture is really, really important. So for me, that's what I think I spend most of my time on.
Yeah, and Rob, you mentioned that 35 countries, emerging markets are a key focus for what bolttech is doing. We're seeing different sorts of products, the sorts of things that you wouldn't expect to be insured in the past, and particularly in the developing world, places like the Philippines, Vietnam. You recently tied up with STC in Saudi Arabia to enter the Middle East market. When you do that, I mean, the decisions you take in boardrooms and as a CEO may struggle to trickle down to ordinary employees who are a key part of the organization. How important is it to retain that focus on the people under you in terms of the organizational structure?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, being in 4 continents and 35 countries comes with so many challenges, so many great opportunities, but so many challenges because you're, by definition, needing to understand the clients. You have to understand the culture, you have to understand the regulatory framework in each of those geographies. So it's important for us anyway to have part of our organization also out in the field where we're touching and feeling and really understanding the world. So it has gotten to where many times people say, gosh, you know, there was work from home and now we want to get everyone back home. I don't actually know quite the definition of that, so I'll put this in context. I have 12 direct reports. They live on 4 continents and 8 different countries. And if I add another direct report, they'll probably work in yet a different country. And the key thing, though, is always to have sort of your North Star. So on day 1, we set a proper set of mission, vision, and values for the organization and have not changed that at all. But what we have changed is the way we go about doing our tasks day to day. So we have to be agile within a broader framework. And so I don't think we shy away from the idea of being having our team not face-to-face, sitting next to one another every day. Does it make it more challenging? And as the CEO, does it create for me the need to sort of be everywhere all the time and always be on? Yes, but that's a small price to pay for the ultimate reward of having a team that actually really understands the markets, really understands the partners, and really understands the customer base that we're even trying to help in the first place. Someone said on an earlier panel, and I really completely agree with them, you can't just build a solution and then just go try to push it out to the people who you want to accept your solution. Forget that idea. The reason that you will have seen, for example, we recently had an announcement with STC, was very much because we begin with the partner first. It is always driven around the partner and the partner's customers' needs because we are B2B2C. And first we focus on understanding them and understanding their customers' needs. And from there, we can build anything. But we don't start by building it first, like the field of dreams, and hoping that eventually the customers will come.
Let me just pick up on one thing you said there in terms of having to be on call. If you look around this room, I'm sure most people look at their jobs and think that they work too long and that they are on call too much because they bear a personal responsibility for what they do. It's an important part of their lives. We hear more about work-life balance, and I'll start with you, Rob, and any of the other CEOs can also chime in here. Do you feel a particular responsibility as the top person in a company to have to always respond, or is that a challenge for you personally outside of the workspace?
It's a great question. I might have a personal urge to want to respond, but I work very hard to say that I put in place an executive leadership team and I don't want to do their jobs. And so I try to give them the flexibility to do their job, again, within certain parameters. But we are constantly in contact. So some of that around-the-clock involvement from me is really just making sure that my team is aligned and then let the team do their job. And you know, if you don't have a philosophy like that, then you must really want to do everyone's job. And if you want to do everyone's job, then you should do that. Then don't hire any of them. You can have a great cost structure. But I would encourage you to have the right team, to put the right team in place, and then give them the flexibility and the freedom to do their job, provide them with help, provide them with contact and assistance, but please don't feel like you have to do everything yourself.
Yeah, and don't
Actually,
micromanage. Man.
we at Nagarro take this very seriously. So in my company, my title, CEO, is not Chief Executive Officer. It's custodian of entrepreneurship in the org. Yeah? And that's actually what it says on my work contract, right? So the whole idea is to enable people. So you're more of the support, and of course you have a certain perspective given where you sit and your vision for the org and stuff. But the final idea is to enable as many people as possible rather than do everything yourself.
And Charlie, I just want to go back to the technology for a second, because you mentioned the importance of data, particularly given that your company sells it, drives on it. We hear taglines like data is the new oil. Do you think that people really understand, I mean, with the perspective you have with the dot-com boom and the importance or the threat that people saw then from the digital world, there are lots of concerns. Do you think we've truly fully understood the relevance of just how important data is going to become in our life?
I think we all use data in a much more meaningful way than we would have done 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think that's just going to become more of a thing. And I think it's what you can do with the data. It's ensuring that the data sets that you get are as proprietary and as enriched as possible, and then creating the tools to exploit it. But I think that's just where we are going to become more and more data reliant as things go forward.
And that's not something that a company or a CEO can do on their own. Presumably you need other stakeholders, government, regulators.
Yeah, and I very much echo the sort of the sentiment of not trying to do everything yourself. I think when you're a founder, you always feel that if somebody doesn't, you always get upset people don't care as much as you do. And then you actually realize that if they did care as much as you do, there's something wrong with them and something wrong with you. But as you evolve and you get bigger, you've got to make sure you syndicate responsibility through the organization. And always try and get brilliant people into the business. And if you do that, you're going to grow. And I think what's great from our perspective is having had this transition from being a traditional business publisher into becoming a data analytics business, it's the kind of quality of people that we can get in and transform the business whilst retaining the culture.
And Roger, AI, future technology, data, very important to the sorts of areas and companies that you look at as well. Some see it as hype, perhaps, or a bit too much attention. Others very worried and concerned. What do you make of the general approach to AI at the moment and its potential in particular?
Yeah, so it makes me think of a quote I'm probably going to butcher of Bill Gates, which is you always overestimate what you can do in a year and you underestimate what you can do in 10, right? And I feel like this is sort of where we are with the whole AI conversation, where there is hype. I do think it's broadly justified if models keep on sort of like evolving in the way they're evolving. But when it comes to the last mile delivery of those applications, right, they are still pretty focused. The reason why I think we'll be touching sort of 4 million investors by the beginning of next year is because our clients really have, is partly because our clients have embraced our approach to AI, which is safety first, and AI first. So when you feel that the tech and the application is ready, go ahead, deploy it, but don't go around and promise like the nirvana to people, because I think that that's like very annoying. And so in the realm of wealth, which I can talk about, I think that what you are seeing is gradual deployments of use cases, and you know, there's sort of like 3 horizons. There's like the 1 to 2 year, there's the 2 to 3, and then there's the complete unknown, right? In the 1 to 2 year, and what we're deploying at the moment, you're talking about copilots, right? Applications that help advisors, relationship managers, to a certain extent, they'll help end investors, but they're mostly pretty focused. They're around synthesizing information. They're around digitizing some processes, et cetera, et cetera. You are not at the point yet where you'll be probably 2 to 3 years from now where you'll wear your Vision Pro and you'll talk to an avatar that's a full AI, and that person will take you through a full financial planning exercise, and they'll advise you on your investments, right? And then if I think about even the unknown, well, you know, when we think about AI and the way we interact with AI, it's either I'm typing or I'm talking. Who says that, you know, you won't be able to just have like some sort of a Neuralink and like, you know, you won't even have to do either, right? So that's sort of like how we think about it. I think the important thing is keep a hand on the pulse, have the right infrastructure in place, and be very, very focused on the delivery. Is the solution you're building something that you can actually give a client, look a client in the eye with and be like, yes, this is ready, this is not gonna, you know.
It's great that you finished that answer with look a client in the eye with, because there will be many people here who work in finance, in fintech, and perhaps maybe worried about the sorts of avatars that are coming. Do you think an avatar technology can offer better financial advice than a human, or is that personal touch that many people here have worked so hard building up over the years, is that still essential moving forward?
So I get asked that a lot. I think that the challenge that we have here in the region is that there is not enough of the advisor's time, right? And our clients, banks, they're struggling to scale up their advice capabilities. And so in the first instance, what we're doing is we're focusing on use cases that release time from the advisors so that they can spend more time with their clients, right? In a second instance, what will probably happen is those avatar-like capabilities, they won't, you know, in the short run, they won't be an avatar, it'll be like some sort of a robo plus. They will be scaled up to clients that are today not economically interesting to private banks. And that's fantastic, because who in this room would love to get some financial advice, but is not getting the right financial advice? Exactly. and then I do think 5-10 years down the line, it'll be a real choice. Some people will want to talk to someone. Some people will want to look at an avatar that looks like someone who looks like, you know, their father, right, and talks with a voice that's been calibrated to them. And yeah, like the processing power that those avatars have, that those AIs have, is really formidable.
And I guess it goes back to Charlie's earlier point about figuring out the way forward in terms of the sorts of guardrails and protections that will be in place. What we're seeing, at least, is a lot of the automation happening in more mechanical tasks further down rather than the high-end value stuff where advisory may sit. But Manas, technology is key to what you guys do at Nagarro, a digital engineering leader, and you work across sectors. So there must be lots of tech, not just specific like AI, that you have to deal with. As a CEO, I wonder, how important is it to understand, or at least pretend you understand, the technical aspects of what's happening? Or is it not important at all?
I guess I'm a bit old school in that respect. I think that it's important for the leader to have some connection with the real work a company does, or at least once have had some connection with the real work a company does. I think that what you're seeing is that human psychology is such that if you're familiar once with an area, you have the confidence to dive deep into it whenever you have to. You may see some patterns, you can give some good advice, you can maybe contribute in some way. And I think that's what you really need at the CEO level. I think there is this trend, though, of CXOs becoming far more hands-on with respect to tech. I think regulators are becoming far more hands-on. Governments, investors, even with respect to tech. So in order to carry out your regular duties as a business leader, I think it really helps to be familiar with the general area of tech and maybe to be a specialist in one or two, right? So you can't really be an expert on all aspects of technology. But if you know a little bit and you're dangerous enough to be dangerous, I think that's where you want to be.
And just briefly, I mean, the global nature of the companies that you guys head up at the moment means that regulation is a lot more difficult. As someone who's driving a lot of the digital engineering, would you like to see more joined-up thinking globally when it comes to regulation, or would you see that as a hindrance to your growth?
You know, I personally am a big proponent of the world coming closer together. I know that some of the business and some of the opportunities, like Rob said, exist because of these frictions between countries and different regulations and stuff. But in general, I feel that it's really sad that we are still stuck in our own little silos. We have gone from the tribe, the village to the city, and then we stop at the country level, for example. And every time there's a new privacy regulation or a new, any regulation, I mean, it all ends up being very local, and that's a good business opportunity, but I think really bad for the world. So yeah, I'm all for more collaboration across the world in the realm of regulation.
Yeah, which does seem challenging in today's age, particularly given the rise we're seeing in protectionism or nationalism in some parts of the world. But we've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to finish off again with a question for each of you. But lots of people here may, as I started off saying, want to be a CEO one day. What's the one bit of advice you'd give them, Charlie? And then I'll work my way down.
I think you've got to evolve all the time. I think you've got to the point made earlier about the North Star, I think you've got to know where you're going, and I think you've got to better galvanize people to come with you. But always recognize that if you get better every day and the guy that's top of their game isn't getting better every day, it's only a matter of time that you'll overtake them. So I think it's having that sort of constant focus on where you want to get to and bringing as many people along with you as you can.
Roger?
I'd say stay authentic, stay true to yourself. I think, as you know, so I was at McKinsey, and then I was at BNY Mellon. I saw 3 different CEOs as head of corporate strategy, and then I became CEO. So I've seen a lot of CEOs, and for me, the greatest ones were vastly different, but they were real. And so stay true to yourself, understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses, embrace them. That for me is like sort of like what I'd like to share.
Rob?
I love that last comment about being authentic, which I think in the end is a big piece for anyone, regardless of which role that you're in, but I think it's super important. I would just say that I'm 30 years into my career, and I spent the first 30 trying to understand the problem. And I think it's far more important to understand the problem than it is to come back with what is the exact answer. People who come and have the answer, I am bombarded every day with people who have an answer for me. I would just love for people to be focused on the problem with me. And so to me, I would say focus on really being relentless in understanding the problem, and then also really understand your role. Your role is not to do everyone else's job. Put yourself surrounded by people who are really great at their jobs, and then enable them. I love the idea of the entrepreneur office and the custodian, because in the end, that's really what our responsibility is.
Just on understanding the problem, there seems to be this obsession at the moment with the solution and finding the solution and who's got the best solution. Do you think we need to spend a bit more time actually looking at the question before we're looking for the best answer?
Yeah, I love that. For everyone who's dealing with the AI question and trying to figure out how do I even figure out the right solution, forget that. Just begin first with what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and if you bring it all the way back down to that simple question, that might be really hard. It's not a simple question, but if you bring it back to that topic, the answer for how to solve it becomes much easier. But it's when everyone is bombarding us every day with the solution.
And sometimes it's a bit like with the blockchain, so a spreadsheet will do.
Yeah. As a former journalist, the emphasis on the questions is definitely something that resonates, and I'm glad to hear that. Lastly then, Manas, your bit of advice for potential CEOs?
Many years ago, I happened to have lunch with this highly decorated Navy captain who was once commanding an aircraft carrier, and I was very impressed. You know, as a child, you see these aircraft carriers, and then you actually get to meet a captain of an aircraft carrier. And I asked him, sir, how did you become so successful? And he said something that stuck with me. He said, I always let the people who worked with me, gave them a lot of freedom, allowed them to do my job, and I focused on what was keeping my boss awake at night and tried to make him successful. Him, because the Navy at that time was all men, but try to make him successful. And that I think is basically abstracting yourself a little bit from the day-to-day and thinking about the bigger picture. And Rob, I love the piece about come to me with the problem, understanding of the problem, and don't come with quick solutions. I think it's just a bit of that, right? I mean, it's just a bit of, there's this word in Hindi called gehra, which means a little bit of depth. You need a bit of depth, I think, to go all the way to the top of a company.
And give them freedom, allowing them to grow. But thank you. I think we're just about to run out of time, but thank you for a fascinating discussion. Lots of expertise and insight there, which I hope was helpful. I'll leave you with what I've written down as those last 4 notes. Evolve all the time, stay authentic, understand the problem, give them freedom. So yeah, a good note to finish on, I think, in terms of strategies for a successful CEO. Just want to say a quick thank you to all 4 of my panelists, Charlie Kerr, the founder and CEO of With Intelligence, Roger Rahana, the Chief Executive Officer of Althea, Rob Schimek, the Group Chief Executive Officer of Singapore-based bolttech, and last but by no means least, Dr. Manas Human, the co-founder and CEO of Nagaro. Thank you very much.